All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good everything else. This is Drew Horn. I'm the Director of Business Development at Sumo Logic. And today I wanted to spend, maybe 15, 20 minutes walking through our software development optimization solution. Just going to provide a little bit of a quick overview on Sumo and talk a little bit about, SDO, what it is, why it's important, and then jump into a live demo and walk through a couple of the dashboards and the content. And then we'll save the rest of the time here for the call today to do some Q&A for anyone that has any questions. So just before we hop into the SDO solution, so quick background on Sumo for those of you that aren't familiar. We are the leading continuous intelligence platform. What that means to me is we're a cloud native multi-tenant machine data analytics platform. So, you can send all of your logs, metrics, and traces to Sumo. We have a scalable service here since our solution is cloud native and multi-tenant. We're able to focus on scalability and elasticity in our cloud. And then from a value perspective, right, everyone can still send their on-prem data, their hybrid cloud data, their multi-cloud data, all to Sumo Logic. It's a single platform covering a bunch of different use cases. Again, today we're going to focus on the CI/CD pipeline and more of a DevOps use case. Given the nature of our SaaS platform, we can take advantage of a cloud economics model. We have some differentiated pricing models around data tiering. Since all you have to do is sign up and start sending data as opposed to deploying us on-prem or into a private cloud. The time to get up and running, which you'll see today for this particular solution, is super quick. And then, one of the things with the SaaS platform, there's always a question around security. So we've had a huge focus on, getting the security attestations around PCI, HIPAA, GDPR, and FedRAMP. So these are some of the customers that trust us and use us on a day-to-day basis. And then jumping a little bit more into the use cases and platform itself, there's kind of three core use cases for Sumo around operational intelligence, sending us, again, metrics, traces, events, logs into Sumo. Security intelligence, both from an audit and compliance perspective, security analytics, as well as a full-blown cloud SIEM, and business intelligence. So our customers are leveraging us for kind of these three different core use cases, sending data to Sumo. We'll collect and centralize all of your data. We'll allow you to monitor and visualize that data. You can set up alerts and notifications. It can allow you to leverage our Sumo query language to search all of this data and use those insights for predictions and optimizations. So digging a little bit into SEO, let's talk about this particular use case. This slide is almost the same as the one before, but I've kind of put this together in a way that talks about the SDLC and the DevOps tool chain. So I just wanted to cover kind of three challenges. I'm a former DevOps manager, so this is a solution I wish I had 5 years ago when I was doing a lot of this work and doing some consulting for teams building CI/CD pipelines. It's really hard to benchmark and find the root cause and optimize the CI/CD process and frankly the entire DevOps lifecycle at an organizational level. It's not really that difficult to do if you're just one person on one team, with a couple pipelines. Your pipeline, you kind of know what's going on. You have a good enough sense. But when it comes to the team level or at the product level or organizational level, the problem compounds pretty quickly, right? So typical organization, they're using 2, 3, a dozen or more, maybe different tools to build and deploy software. In addition, everyone's kind of maybe you're following a framework to construct your pipelines. Maybe you're not, maybe that's different across teams, but pipeline sprawl is kind of another challenge that we see when trying to collect data from all of the different pipelines. If everyone's designing their pipelines differently, the data that's emitted from those are different, it's shaped differently, it's siloed. It's very difficult to collect this data from all of these different tools. and pull it together in one spot. And then finally, of course, I think, a lot of, if you got any developers or release engineers on the call, dealing with multiple different platforms is a challenge too. So if you're trying to build and deliver software for web, for mobile web, for iOS, for Android, for IoT, for set-top or TV or gaming consoles, right? You start running into a cardinality problem where you've got all these different tools, you've got all these different pipelines and all of these different platforms. And so this is, this challenge is really what we've been focusing on for our SDO solution. So what we've done is we've taken our analytics platform and we've made it easy, right, to allow teams to send data from all of these different DevOps tools into Sumo. So we'll ingest that data, and I'll show you guys in a little bit. We'll then leverage our query language to parse and normalize that data to a common schema. And what that allows us to do then is some automated correlation and computation of metrics that are challenging to compute in that they require pieces of data from multiple different tools in order to show teams, in order to benchmark their software delivery performance. And then, by collecting all of these events and computing the metrics in Sumo and capturing those logs, we're actually able to show you, what are the metrics and underlying logs from an operational perspective to help you kind of dig into those metrics and actually optimize your software development and delivery process, right? And we all know what the benefit is of shipping high quality code faster, right? If you get code out the door faster, you're going to be more profitable. You're going to have better customer satisfaction, improve team collaboration. And that's not something we made up here at Sumo, right? Some of you may be familiar with the DORA, DevOps Research and Assessment. They're now owned by Google, but they put out years of reports that have through applied data science have shown that teams that are focused on software delivery performance have some significant market advantages for their competitors, right? So elite performers in the DORA classification, which I'll show you shortly, when compared to low performers, they're deploying code 200 times more frequently. Their lead time is 100 times faster. They can recover from incidents 2,600 times faster, and they're breaking deployments 7 times less than those folks. And what that data has shown is, these kind of 4 core DORA metrics are key predictors of organizational productivity, profitability, customer satisfaction, and employee satisfaction. So it's no wonder why tons of organizations are focused on measuring and improving these metrics. We have a huge initiative internally. Outside of the development of this solution, we were developing this solution in-house and then found out engineering was working on trying to measure and improve these metrics. So we dog-food our solution internally here as well. Just a couple more slides here. I just wanted to kind of show the solution just from a different angle here, kind of a little bit with respect to these metrics, with respect to the DevOps lifecycle, and talk a little bit about some of the key features here before we head into the demo. So again, right, we're taking all the fragmented data from these tools, we're normalizing it to a common schema with respect to the different phases in the DevOps lifecycle. And then we're computing some of these core metrics and others, which I'll show you, that are going to help you benchmark your software delivery performance and help inform teams on, from a data-driven perspective, how to optimize, right? A couple things here when building this solution that we wanted to focus on is collecting this data at an organizational level. So again, not too difficult to do this for a single pipeline, but the challenge gets tough when doing this at an organizational level. And we want to be able to show this data and cut it by multiple different dimensions. So, a developer may be interested in just their team or just the product or repos that they're working on. So making it easy to take the organizational data and filter or slice that by a particular team or product or repo. Engineering leadership or executive, senior leadership may want to actually aggregate all of the data at an organizational level or a business unit level and understand how teams are performing in order to, maybe you need to apply more resources for a particular project, or if you know, a particular team that's trying out new technologies and processes, or they're undergoing a DevOps transformation, right? If you want to see how that's going well, right? You obviously want to share that practice throughout the organization. And then finally, extensibility, right? So the Sumo Logic platform, you know, it's a Swiss Army knife. So it's all about defining you know, best practices and solutions, which we've done here. But it's still extremely extensible and flexible. So we find teams, some of our customers are extending this schema, and they're adding, you know, things like additional testing correlations from their automated tests, or maybe they're sending data from the artifacts that they're building from tools like JFrog, or maybe they're adding a security layer to this, right? They want to, you know, understand when team, you know, anomaly, like user-related anomalous activity when it comes to checking in code, et cetera. So the schema is extensible, and I'll show you a little bit about that later on. So jumping into how this is built, it's a little bit different than some of the other apps that live in our app catalog. So for those of you that are Sumo customers, right, we have our app catalog. You can hop in and just immediately install some out-of-the-box content. This is more of a solution. It's a little bit different in that the entire solution is set up via Terraform. So we have some documentation on how to, you know, install Terraform if you haven't already. You'll punch in some information about the different out-of-the-box tools that we support, like Jira, Bitbucket, OpsGenie, GitHub, Jenkins, PagerDuty. And you'll punch in your API key. And once you run that, this tool will reach out to Sumo. It'll reach out to all of these tools, automatically configure webhooks from these tools to get the data ingested into Sumo. It'll install the mechanism to normalize the data. It's called field extraction rules. I'll show you in a little bit what that looks like. And then it installs all of the content, all the out-of-the-box dashboards that you see on the right. And those dashboards, again, they sit on top of the normalized schema, which makes it easy to, right, extend that schema, swap out different tools. So if you're in the middle of, you know, we've got plenty of customers, right? Maybe they're using Jenkins, they're switching to GitHub Actions. You know, you make that swap as that new unstructured different data comes in from GitHub, you map that to our common schema, and, you know, all of the metrics and insights in the solution will then feed off of that new tool. So it's resilient to and accommodates, you know, changes to your DevOps tool chain. Okay, so let's take a look at the demo. I want to show y'all some of the dashboards. Before we jump into these, I wanted to talk about the normalization real quick, a little bit of some of the technical bits here. So when the solution is installed, you'll select, you know, what tools that you're using in your pipeline, and we'll automatically install a handful of tools that we support out of the box. Field extraction rules, it's just part of our ingest pipeline, where you'll define a Sumo Logic query that's going to grab data from that tool, a common set of fields in our schema. So you can see we've got some examples here for Bitbucket, for Jenkins, for Jira, for PagerDuty. These are tools that we support out of the box. Obviously, everyone isn't just using the out-of-the-box tools that we have. So, you know, if you're using something like GitLab or Azure DevOps or Octopus Deploy or Circle CI or one of the other 500,000 tools, right? You know, adding support for those is a matter of defining a query here that'll take that data that's shaped differently from that tool and map it to our common schema. And we have some open source field extraction rules that our team and some of our joint customers have been kind enough to share with us. This is an open source repo, the Sumo Logic content repo. If you dig into software development optimization, we've got a growing list of, you know, different tools that aren't necessarily baked into the Terraform script yet, but you can copy, paste, and tweak the field extraction rules for some of these tools and pop them into Sumo to get up and running quickly. And then a little bit on the schema. So like I said, we've kind of tied our schema to, you know, the kind of the infinity curve, right? The DevOps lifecycle phases. So It's built around entities like deploys or builds or issues or maybe like work items if you're an Azure person, and incidents if from like a PagerDuty or OpsGenie perspective. So we've defined kind of the different entities here and the different fields that are required or optional. So the more of these that you're mapping to from the data that's emitted from your tool chain, the more that the more you're going to see, and the more dimensions you're going to be able to slice the data by and filter by. That's all available. help.sumologic.com. Search for software development optimization. We've got an entire landing page with a bunch of different help items. There's also an example on how to integrate other tools with the solution that may not be supported by Terraform, which I talked about earlier. So feel free to check that out. And on to the demo. So let's walk through some of the out-of-the-box content here. There are two different ways of kind of looking at all this data. The first is more from a DORA perspective. We really pin the solution on these industry-leading metrics first and foremost. And then we have more of an operational or CI/CD pipeline kind of view of that same data. So you'll see here we have two overview dashboards for the DORA metrics and the pipeline. And then we have a set of drill down dashboards here in these folders. So I'm going to walk through these real quick and kind of show you how this data is shaped. So the landing page for the DORA metrics, we take all 4 of the core DORA metrics, and based off of how you're performing, we're going to show, elite performers is green, high performers is yellow, medium performers is orange, low performers is red. So you can just very quickly understand where you sit in an organizational level. And we have some time series data that shows by default for the last 2 weeks how all of the teams have been performing, with some outlier analysis too. If you want to dig in and understand, what happened, what happened with this, awesome, spike in deployment frequency or drops, et cetera. So that data is all available here. And then for drilling down into each of these dashboards, we take that same data, we start kind of carving it out by different dimensions. So here's an example of lead time. We'll show you your lead time, but then from the data we're collecting by repos, by the different the different teams associated with those repos and the different services, we'll start showing all this data. So what are the repos with the slowest lead time? What is the lead time carved out by services? What about by the different teams? Averages, by each of the repos over time. What is the daily average lead time? And then we'll also show, the pipeline duration, which I'll get into in a little bit. This is the time it's taking to go from basically the merge commit that is going to trigger your build job all the way to the completion of a production deployment. Taking a look at a couple of the other drill down dashboards for DORA, we've got deployment frequency, which defines how often you're deploying to production. Higher is of course better. And again, we'll kind of start carving that out by different dimensions here, right? So deployments by repository, deployments over time, success versus failed. And then again, we have some template variables up here. So if you're enriching your data and you're mapping to some of the fields in the schema like service and team, you can kind of come in here, and for the different teams that you may have or the different services that you have, you can filter that data. And this is helpful again for a particular developer or development team that's just really interested in their data and not organizational level data. We also have change failure rate. This is the ratio of deployments that are going out into production compared to what percentage of those are causing customer facing issues. And so by default, we'll kind of carve out the top P1 incidents by service, and then the top 5 alerting services with a weekly comparison. And again, these are kind of like the sensible defaults we decided to put in. Any of these queries can be, I don't have edit permissions in the demo environment because they don't trust me, which is fair. But you can edit any of these panels, and maybe you want all of your P1 through P5 incidents, right? Or you want the top 20 alerting services on a on a sprint basis. So, just there's tons of flexibility here with our dashboarding framework. Time to restore service once an issue has occurred, right? An incident has been filed, maybe in OpsGenie or PagerDuty. Some of our customers use Jira as well to kind of track this. We collect all that data and we show it here. We carve it out by services. So you can kind of see how are the different services reporting incidents over time. What are the top services reporting priority 1 incidents? And again, this data can be filtered as well, right? So if you want to filter by a particular service, let's say database engine, you kind of punch that in and understand, what's the MTTR for the database engine and the kind of the trend line that you saw that was aggregated with the other services. Okay, let's talk about the other way to look at this data. So we've taken the same data and we're kind of showing it from a DevOps lifecycle perspective, right? So this is a little bit more of an operational way to look at the data. So the first thing we do here is we show pipeline execution trends. I've only got one pipeline in here, but you could imagine, kind of like you just saw on the last page for services, you've got 10, 20, 30, 50 pipelines that are executing. We're gonna trim that data out here, and each of the series we're gonna call out here down at the bottom. Aside from pipeline executions, what we've done is from kind of thinking from right to left in the CI/CD pipeline. It's we show you your alerts, and then moving left to deployments to production, and then continuing left into builds and pull requests. And we have issues here. Some people, again, for Jira, we think about issues. For Azure, maybe it's work items. This is all customizable. But we want to give you a high-level overview of what's going on across the entire DevOps pipeline. So you can just get a quick look at top 10 services with critical alerts, a recent kind of cut of your deployments by status, same with builds, what's been successful, what's failed, what's been unstable, and then enumerating that in a tabular way. Same with pull requests, what's been merged recently, what's been created, what's been kind of declined or closed out. A listing of the top 10 pull requests that are kind of taking a long time to close. So this is one that we put in just to make it easy to dig and understand, what's kind of holding up the assembly line here is, it was a really large pull request submitted. Maybe that's a way to kind of just drill down and understand something that needs to be broken up into chunks. Is it not assigned to the right person? Are the people reviewing these pull requests, do they have too much of a workload? Like, what's slowing these down? So, and all of the data that we're pulling in, I'm going to get Oswald here, but all of the data that we're pulling in here is, we're including all of the links back to these originating platforms, right? So if you want to hop into a recent deployment that's failed, you can click on that commit and jump in. And I'm already looking at the commit for this failure here, right, to understand what went wrong. So it's important to kind of, one of the fields that we have are the URLs for the associated data points. This allows you to drill down and start performing root cause analysis as to failed deployments or anything else here. So a couple more things I wanted to show. All the drill down dashboards for the CI/CD pipeline monitoring. Pipeline stage monitoring, this is more around kind of what I call like tracing the CI/CD pipeline. So one thing I want to see in my CI/CD pipelines is basically instrumenting my pipeline and understanding the different the different steps or stages in my pipeline. How long are they taking? Which parts of my pipeline are taking longer than others? Like, what are my bottlenecks? What's slowing down the process? What do I need to focus in on? This is a really simple example here where I've got 2 pipelines, but when you're a team that's responsible for a couple dozen pipelines, and your day job is building and releasing code, it's really helpful to have a data-driven visualization that can just quickly tell you, like, look, for next sprint, I have a few cycles. What do I want to focus in on to try to improve my release velocity or improve my reliability? And that's what this dashboard is here for. Because I can come here and I can quickly tell that, look, these regression tests for master build test are kind of slowing me down here, right? So I can maybe filter by master build test. And again, imagine several pipelines here. This is the regression test stage inside of my pipeline. So let's filter that down. And so you can see the tabular data has been filtered down here. And so now I can just kind of very quickly understand, what steps in my pipeline are taking so freaking long here, right? And so it looks like I might have broken my backend, ETL tests that I'm running as part of the regression test, because it's taking 23 hours. So something has gone horribly wrong there, and we can drill in. We can either drill down all the way to the log data here, or we can hop into that particular job and understand what's going wrong. So super helpful dashboard to kind of make sense of the relationship of different stages in your different pipelines. The last couple of dashboards here, drill down for alerts. So again, allowing you to kind of card this data by service, by team, by priority. And then relationship of created versus closed, high priority alerts cut by service. On the build side, we'll show you, look here, all the recent builds over by default the last 24 hours, a breakdown of the status, a breakdown by service, breakdown by team, relationship of build versus failures, and some of the most recent data down here at the bottom. And just kind of taking this practice to some of the other different parts of the DevOps lifecycle. So on deployments, most recent deployments, what are the most recent results? Cutting that by environment, day over day comparison of my deployments, cutting that data by repository, showing it by service. How many, is a quick comparison of, and this is also cut by success and fail. So you can see we've got 68 failed deployments for payments. So the frequency is high, but the failure rate is also high. And then cutting this data by team as well. Again, this is just to allow you to kind of look at this data at an organizational level if you'd like to, focus in on, what teams do I need to work with to help improve reliability or improve some of these DORA metrics. Or again, you can filter it down to your own team. Jumping into issues here. This is the issue data we're collecting from the likes of Jira, for example. This data can be filtered down to maybe you just want to show bugs here. So for example, we're cutting this data by all the usual suspect dimensions here: priority, project, type, status. But then, for example, here, top 10 issues that are taking the longest to close. This can be potential, you can filter this down to be epics or tasks, or they could just be bugs if you're interested on, closing out bugs. What are the most recent issues here? And then maybe one last example here is pull requests. So we're taking all the pull request data from, for example, GitHub, cutting that by status, showing it by the different services, by the different target branches, depending on your branching strategy. This may or may not make sense to you if you're using something like Gitflow, if you're doing mainline, it may be a little bit different, but we've also got review data here. So some of the engineering teams, that we work with like this data, because you can very quickly understand, if you've got communication issues across teams, if people are coming in and they're submitting PRs that are too large, you can very quickly kind of understand what's taking too long. You can hop into these pull requests and help nudge things forward, or assign, pull requests to different teams, with the goal of just, again, increasing release velocity. So those are the different dashboards. I'm going to just kind of head back to the slides here. Just some informational data before we head off to the Q&A. this solution, you can start a free trial and set this data up with the help documentation I mentioned earlier at sumologic.com. Just search for software development optimization in the app catalog. As you can imagine, the data coming from these tools, our pricing is ingest based. The data coming from these tools is extremely low. So this is a really cost-effective way to measure these DORA metrics and to get visibility into your pipeline. Very low ingest. And then you can also contact sales@sumologic.com if you have any questions on pricing and packaging. And that's it. So thanks everyone for hopping in. What I want to do is maybe switch over to the Q&A and see if we have any questions here. And let's see, I'm going to stop my share. Okay, no questions. So that means I've done a perfect job. Look, so, don't hesitate to reach out. I know my title at the start of this, business development, what is that? I couldn't have answered that question 5 years ago as a DevOps manager or software developer. I've played a product role in helping put this solution together. So I'm available on our public Slack. I think the webinar team maybe posted a link to the Sumo Dojo. It's an open Slack for anyone to join. So if you have any questions on the solution, either getting it set up or want to learn more, how to tailor or extend the solution and send your specific team data, product data, environment data, some of those organization specific measurements that you may want to include in the solution, don't hesitate to hop into the Slack org and reach out to me. And with that, I think just one quick last check on the Q&A. Looks like we're good. So thanks everyone for joining today. Appreciate your time, and have a nice weekend. And again, don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything. Thanks everyone for joining. Bye.